Amirah's Tales, Stories of the Living. It's been 5 years since we started chatting. We have never met anywhere in our lives, and even if we did, I'm not sure we would recognize ourselves out of crowd. Perhaps in a small pool or at proximity, we would look at each other with suspicion of, do I know you? I think I do. You look like my distant friend from the old faint pictures we shared a couple of years ago. Although photos can sometimes be deceiving for thinking out loud, I imagine that's how it would go down in our minds. Oftentimes, we chatted through Facebook before exchanging numbers and taking the conversation to WhatsApp a year after our first exchanges. We cracked jokes and laughed about anything there was to laugh about. We discussed almost everything there is to talk about in life, and more frequently, about love and relationships. I shared with him all sorts of advice whenever the need arose. I offered knowledge from personal experiences, learnings, and life stories from acquaintances and strangers, not to mention human expectations, among other things. From time to time, we shared knowledge, discussed each other's life happinesses and special moments, troubles, weaknesses and strengths, likes and dislikes, wishes and fantasies, and to a small extent talked about family. If I'm to remember correctly, even though I wouldn't bet my hand on it, it took nearly 2 years or even more before we spoke over the phone, when I finally got to hear the voice of the person on the other end of the phone keyboard. From the way he speaks, he sounds to be a lovely person. He often has no trouble making conversation or voicing his opinion when engaged on a particular topic. Our friendship continuously grew, but it remained platonic. We accused one another of chucking the other when time went by without communication. At different time intervals, and more than once, each of us asked to meet the other, but those requests were all rejected with no hard feelings attached. Some objections were as direct as a straight no, while others were vaguely declined with no clear reasons. One thing I'm almost 100% certain of is that he brought up the suggestion of us meeting first before I ever did. At the time, had I ever thought about the idea of us meeting? Yes, but I wasn't quite sure I was ready for such a thing to happen. Maybe I just preferred to remain half-known. I believe the things we discussed in our several text conversations over time stimulated our curiosity about the physical face of the human being on the other end of the phone. Under such circumstances, it's only human that you grow curious with time. However, there was still no huge sense of urgency to really meet. To me, it almost came off as a once-in-a-while desire that preceded a lonely life moment, a heated debate, or sometimes an extensive talk about a particular aspect of life. In all our time, we had a few set of rules which guided, if not governed, our friendship, and these were never to be broken. 1. Don't judge the other person regardless of what they say, ask, do, or did. Mutual respect. These 2 rules have been very pivotal to our half a decade of friendship. Nonetheless, we mocked one another, called each other random names that differed from time to time, depending on what we were discussing at a particular moment in time. But it also goes without saying that we had our days of conversation drought, when we didn't really have much to talk about. About a month ago, on a random evening, he called me. It had been a couple of weeks since we last talked or even exchanged greetings over a chat. Not that it was unusual of our friendship. He spoke with a slow, deep voice, as if to suggest that something was wrong. It was filled with a subtle level of sadness. "Hi, Amirah," he said, lacking the usual charm, comic and high-spirited voice he always spoke with whenever he called. "Hi, how are you? You sound so low. Is everything fine? Are you okay?" I responded with great concern. "No, I'm not okay. I am not fine at all. I'm thinking about committing suicide. I'm going to commit suicide," Jackson said. Feeling speechless and shocked, with my tongue stuck, at least I felt so, I went mute for a second before he asked, "Amirah, are you still there?" "Yes, I noted in response, proceeding with a question that rather sounded insensitive in itself at the time, and yet I found myself posing it anyway. "So why did you call me if you're going to commit suicide?" "I don't know, but I thought I should let someone know since I'm leaving no written note or anything." "Okay, what's wrong? What happened? You're scaring me. Why on earth would you even think about it? Why are you even considering this? There's always a solution to every problem, but taking your own life isn't one of them. As a matter of fact, you will be creating another problem. So tell me, why do you want to do this? Please, let's talk about this before you do anything stupid." So many questions and utterances, but Jackson gave me one simple answer. Life, he said, with a choking voice, as if to suggest that he was trying to contain a tears breakdown on the other end of the phone. Me, what's wrong with life? Him, everything. Everything about it is wrong, at least for me anyway. Me, can we at least talk about it? Your life, I mean. Him, what would you like to know? Me, everything, and more importantly, why you think it's not worth living anymore. Why you think your stupid idea is the solution. Just tell me everything, and let's talk about it. Over the next course of about half an hour plus, all I did was to listen. He spoke to me and opened up in ways and on matters he had never done before. Jackson felt like his life had hit a dead end, and from what Elle gathered, at least according to him, his achievements were so small to recognize, and yet his failures appeared too big to ignore. His lack of reasonable employment and progress in life became his new description and definition by loved ones, including some of his relatives. He felt a certain sense of rejection from his societal circles, and whenever everyone's expectations from him hit his mind, it all felt like he was disappointing everyone, including himself. He largely survived on stipends, and the fact that his own relatives and loved ones looked at him like this is what led him into thinking about the unthinkable suicide, not just once but a couple of times, I came to learn. He had suffered from depression. Unwritten responsibilities and life pressures had boxed him into submission. While looking around him, amongst his peers and friends, life seemed to be at steady acceleration for them. Gathering most of his fact from social media feeds and once in a while one-on-one interactions with friends, the world seemed to be moving on without him. Some days were obviously brighter than others, while most seemed darker than darkness itself. According to Jackson, besides conversation banter with friends, the last time he experienced genuine happiness and acceptance was a moment of mixed reactions as he kissed his girlfriend goodbye. She was departing for work in Abu Dhabi, 2 years down the road, and he had not experienced any genuine acceptance from those he probably expected it from. If that isn't miserable, then I don't know what is. And when his plans, backed by his girlfriend and a maternal uncle, to leave the country were foiled in what he explained to be the work of witchcraft from a family member among other factors, life became more frustrating than it already was. That's when his credit ran out. I panicked. I scrambled to get credit. I called him back, and luckily enough, he answered the phone. I extensively spoke to him about life as I knew it, and had experienced it to some extent. I shared with him how I hadn't figured out all my personal frustrations about life, how almost everyone didn't have it all figured out. Over the next 2 weeks, I called Jackson at least twice, and sometimes even more every day, just to check on him, to make sure that he is alive and willing to take the slow and often lonely journey to recovery from such negative thoughts, to make sure he wasn't sliding back into his stupid idea of committing suicide as the solution to his life problems. To him, I emphasized the importance of having someone to talk to every now and then about his life frustrations, someone in his inner or wider circle of friends and loved ones that wasn't going to judge him and consider openness as whining. I would appreciate it if it were me you talked to, but I also understand it may not be easy to tell me everything in detail. However, you need to find somebody you can tell almost everything or the exclusives. I said to him, depression is real, and like Grace Nakimura said, people are going through much more. But always talk to someone, not because they're going to give you solutions, but because they are willing to listen. And if you're that special somebody to someone, understand that people aren't always looking for tangible help for their life problems or situations and frustrations. Sometimes all they need is somebody to listen so they can let it out. Get it off their head because it's heavy to carry around alone. I can't say Jackson is all recovered from his negative thoughts, but I'm confident that he has made some progress and that with God's grace, he will overcome his nightmares. Dedication to all my lovely readers. God Will Make a Way by Don Moen recommended. Watch 13 Reasons Why American TV series. Hi everyone. This is Robert K. Circles. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast today. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen. I hope you enjoyed this story. If you did, I'd be incredibly grateful if you could take a moment to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. Give us a like on your favorite podcast platform. Leave a comment letting us know what you thought. We love hearing your feedback. And if you know someone who might enjoy the show, please share it with them. Your support means the world to me and helps us reach more listeners. Thanks again for being a part of the Robert K. Circles community. Until next time, take care.